This is not a tent caterpillar. It's a salmon in a sling, waiting to become saumon braisé au Porto. And you don't need a restaurant stove to do it in either. See how, in small kitchen, big ideas, today on The French Chef.
The French Chef is made possible by a grant from the Polaroid Corporation.
Welcome to The French Chef. I'm Julia Child. You know, when you have a small working space, that really shouldn't limit your ideas. Just pick a menu that doesn't happen to use all of the kitchen at once. For instance, have a first course and a dessert that you can get rid of and have cold and keep in the refrigerator, and have vegetables that don't require a whole lot of last-minute fussing. And then you can concentrate the full power of your genius on something marvelous, like this salmon, which has been braised in wine and is covered with a beautiful, winey, mushroomy, vegetably aromatic sauce. It's an absolutely lovely dish, and it's not difficult to do. I mean, it's not unusually difficult to do, I don't think. And it's and it's so terribly good, people will think you're a whiz when you serve it. And I'm going to cook it two ways. One in the standard oven, and the other one braised in a microwave oven. And we're going to do the microwave oven first, because it only takes 20 minutes to cook in the microwave against an hour to cook in the standard oven. So there she goes in, close the door, turn it on, set the timer for 10 minutes. And we'll come back and look at it and discuss it later on, because we're going to do braised fish, and whichever oven you cook it in, the preparations are the same. And braising means to cook anything like vegetables, fish, meat in a very small amount of deliciously flavored liquid in a covered container. And part of the deliciousness of the deliciously flavored liquid is aromatic vegetables, which we have heard of many times before. And aromatic vegetables are, as you will remember, it's onions, carrots, and celery. And the aromatic vegetables here are going to become part of the sauce, so I'm cutting them into mirepoix. That's mirepoix, which means small dice about 1/4 of an inch across. And so here are all of these vegetables that have been cut into mirepoix. They are the carrots, 1 cup of carrots and 1 cup of celery and about 2 cups of onions. And they're all going to be cooked. And the reason you want to cook them is so that they will give off their aromatic flavor. And if you put them in raw, you're not going to get all that delicious flavor. So for this amount, we want about 2 tablespoons of butter, and there go the 2 cups of onions, the 1 cup of carrots, and the 1 cup of finely diced celery. And then they should have a little bit of sauce as well. Salt, I mean, about 1/2 a teaspoon of salt. And then they have to have some herbs, an herb bouquet. And if you have fresh herbs like fresh tarragon and fresh parsley and a bay leaf, you can just tie them up together and put them in as they are, so it looks like a bouquet. Otherwise, you use a piece of washed cheesecloth and wrap the herbs. I'm saying pretending that you have dried tarragon. You want about 1/2 a teaspoon and 4 or 5 sprigs of parsley and 1 good big imported bay leaf, and then tie them all up in the cheesecloth so that you can remove them after cooking. And one reason for tying them is a friend of ours wrote that she didn't make an herb bouquet and she put a piece of bay leaf in a beef stew, and the bay leaf stuck to a piece of beef, and when she swallowed it, she almost choked her to death on the bay leaf. So that's one good reason of why tie up your herbs, particularly if it has a bay leaf in it. And that goes in to your pan, and that should cook 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes until it is tender. And meanwhile, I'm going to give you a little fish display as to what kind of fish you can braise. Now, this is lovely this is a great big striped bass. That must weigh about 9 or 10 pounds. And if you have a big oven, you can braise this. You can bend it around like that. The important thing is, in any way in braising, that you don't want an oily fish like mackerel. You can use swordfish, which we have used, and it's very good, but you wouldn't have a cream sauce with it. Or you can have a big piece of fish, like a big piece of haddock. Or you could have a great big enormous fillet of cod, and what an honor for humble cod to be braised in wine and aromatic vegetables. But it turns cod into really something else than the usual. We're going to do salmon, so I shall unveil it and show you why I have it in this contraption. The idea is that it's easy to get it off once it's cooked. You can lift it out of the roaster. So I have a rack. Then I have the cheesecloth under the rack so you can pick it up. And you can use any kind of a pan. This is just the roasting pan that comes with your oven without its slotted top. Ideally, a covered roaster like a big turkey roaster would be just great. But if you have a small kitchen, you may not have room to have a great big roaster. So this is how you can adapt what you have to what you want. And so here are 2 pieces of fresh salmon. And I think it's easier actually to have 2 pieces rather than one big one, because they're just easier to remove. And have about half a teaspoon of salt on the inside. And then you want to oil the fish. Use a light olive oil or a salad oil. And then put it oiled side down in the rack. Match them up, because when you have the sauce over, you'll never really know they're 2 pieces. And then oil the top of the fish. And now look, see how nicely that looks there. Now put a little salt on. And then we're going to put our vegetables on. And they have cooked enough. Cook them until they're tender. There's the bay leaf. There's the herb bouquet. I'm going to put that at the side of the pan. And half of the cooked vegetables are going on top of the salmon. And I think one reason you see so much of these aromatic vegetables in French cooking is that it does give an absolutely delicious taste to things. Now take your cheesecloth. Again, this is washed cheesecloth, and it's washed because if it weren't, you would have a medicinal taste. And then cover that up, and then put the rest of the vegetables around the outside. And then you're going to have the liquid in the pan. And the wonderful thing about braising is, as we've done it with meats and other things, is that you have an automatic sauce just made. And I'm going to use 1 whole bottle of a good dry white wine. This is a Macon. And it's got to be a good wine, not a sour one. There's a Macon, and I'm also going to have a bottle of clam juice, or you could use a cup of chicken stock, or not many people would have fish stock around. And now that is your braising liquid. And the nice thing about this too is that you can get this done ahead of time. And you can cover it and refrigerate it. And as to the amount of liquid, you want to be sure that you pick a pan that's not too big, or you'd have to put too much liquid in. And this it's about a ½ inch or so. It's just enough so that you'll have enough liquid for the cooking, so that it will all be steaming up throughout the cooking. So if you run out of liquid, you can always add a little bit more. And now to the microwave, and this fish comes out. Turn it off, open it up. And important, you see, I want you to see that this is really exactly the same in preparation. There's your fish. It's smaller, of course, and you're limited by the size of your oven, but this is cooking in its dish. This is the dish it's going to serve in, and it has the vegetables and wine, and it's cooked for 10 minutes, and now it must be turned over to cook on the other side, because the bone is still in the fish, and the bone stops the microwave, so that you have to turn it so the microwaves can penetrate everywhere. And then this is just covered with wax paper. But you'll find that the microwave does an absolutely delicious job on fish. It's particularly good with things that are like fish that are tender anyway. And it turns out to be the most tender, delicious, juicy fish you could ever hope to put in your mouth. Now back it goes in for another 10 to 12 minutes, so I'll set my timer. Probably set it for about 11 minutes. There. And just leave it, and that's it. Now, if you're going to cook in this standard oven, as we are here, you want to bring it, just before you cook it, you want to bring it to the simmer. And that's what you do anytime that you cook that you're braising anything in the oven. You always bring the liquid up to the simmer first, and then put it in the oven, and then you can time it perfectly. And then you want to cover it. In this case, if you had your roaster, you'd have a covered roaster, you'd just cover it in the normal way. But in this case, we're going to cover it with a large piece of heavy-duty foil. And this is 8 to 9 pounds of salmon, and it's going to cook about 1 hour, really very, very slowly, hardly at the simmer. And what you go by is the thickness. It's just like if you were cooking a fillet of beef or a loin strip. You don't go by how much it weighs, you go by how thick it is. So it doesn't make a difference really how long it is either. And this is going to go into a 350-degree oven, and it's going to cook very, very, very slowly. So there's nothing particularly difficult about doing the braising once that you get the vegetables done. And I think it's a very good idea to start. You know it's going to take an hour, but also you want it to wait for about half an hour before serving, because it seems to meld nicely. And so I would suggest putting it in about 2 hours before you're ready to serve, because you do want to make your sauce, and the fish can wait perfectly well. So, after that lengthy explanation, I'm going to put it in to about the lower middle level of a 350 oven. And then look at it and baste it about every 20 minutes. Use a bulb baster or a spoon lifting up the foil and putting it back on again. And be sure that the liquid doesn't do any more than just barely shiver, because if it cooks faster than that, the fish can break apart, which you don't want that to happen. And then if it's done, you just turn the oven way down to about 140 or so. So here we have one, and we'll just take a look at it. And I think it's a bad directions when they say cook until the fish flakes. Because if it flakes, it's overdone. What you'd want to do is to cook until to a temperature of about 165. And then it's done, and you can tell by if the fish, when you cut along the backbone, if it comes easily off the bone, it's done. But the fish should still remain juicy. Now this has been done in a covered roaster. I wanted you to see it done both ways, and now I am unveiling it for you. But as you see, this is perfectly done. You can also tell by poking it. And also, it has stayed together perfectly. And if you allowed it to cook hard, it would burst apart. Now, on to platter. And I think because this roaster is roomy enough, I don't think I'm going to have to lift up with the cheesecloth. But you never know. Anything is getting it out, and I have this great big flapper, which is a great help. That came out very nicely. This is another reason why it's a good idea to have two pieces of fish rather than one great big one. Because the great big one is rather unwieldy. This is going to be peeled. Now take of the rack of the cheesecloth out. Let the liquid drain out a little more thoroughly than I did. And there's your herb bouquet. And then take any little bits out. Because all of this liquid now is going to be turned into the sauce and the braising vegetables also. And I'm going to put this foil back over the fish. And then I'm going to set the fish to keep warm. I have here some steamed rice in a colander with, again, some damp cheesecloth, and put the fish right on top of that, and that's going to keep it warm. And then get the roaster, and I'm going to get the cover also. So that's going to keep very nicely warm. These are some of the small kitchen tricks. This is what they do very often in France. Because very often they turn out the most marvelous food on just a 2-burner stove. Now, your juices go into a saucepan. And you want 3 cups. I'm giving you something of a token here. You should put all of this in and then boil it rapidly down to 3 cups. And I'm just going to put in exactly 3 cups. Then you want to bring that up to the boil. And then we're going to thicken it. And that's how you turn the juice into a sauce. I think this is an example of how, if you've done one kind of a sauce, the other ones are very much the same way, even though it's fish juice rather than meat juice. And in this instance, I'm going to thicken the sauce with cornstarch. And this is going to be a sauce au porto, or a port wine sauce. And I want 3 tablespoons of cornstarch or of potato or rice starch. So it's, in other words, 1 tablespoon per cup. And then this is going to get about, 1/3 to 1/2 a cup of dry port wine. This happens to be white port wine. And that gets beaten up so that you've thoroughly mixed your cornstarch with the liquid. Now this is not yet at the boil, so I can just pour this right in. And then that has to boil for about 2 or 3 minutes to cook the cornstarch. And I think it's a good idea also if you use the usual velouté, which has the butter and flour roux. You have a lot of additional butter, and in this way, with the cornstarch, you have a less fatty sauce, but you're going to enrich it anyway. 3 egg yolks. Remember, don't worry about using 3 egg yolks because you can always freeze the egg whites and make a meringue out of them. And a bit of heavy cream, about half a cup. And this is this nice crème fraîche, the French type cream that's made out of sour cream and heavy cream, allowed to thicken together. And that's mixed up, and then we wait till this comes up and simmers. And you can get the sauce made ahead also, which is a good idea. That's one reason why it's good to braise the fish a little bit ahead of time, and then you can have the sauce made ahead, and you can heat it up. Now that's just come to the boil, and I'm going to beat it. Very gradually into the egg yolks mixture. And then beat the egg yolks and cream back into the hot sauce. This is, as we've done numerous times before, of enriching a sauce with egg yolks. You always heat the egg yolks just gradually first with some hot liquid, and then you pour it back into the hot sauce, and then you bring it to the boil. And I'm going to put in, I've got some mushrooms, stewed mushrooms. I'm going to put a few of them in there and let that cook while I take the fish out of the micro oven, because I think it's done. Now, as you remember, well, naturally in a microwave oven you always have to cook in glass or ceramic. And this is a ceramic dish here. But here, again, you have your fish. It has to sit because the microwave doesn't finish cooking. All of the microwaves have gotten a lot of activity going inside the fish, and it has to sit for probably about 10 minutes, and it'll finish cooking that way. And you have all of your sauce here, your sauce making here, and you make it exactly the same way as you made the other sauce, and adapting the same system. And I really think it's a lovely way of doing fish. Now I'm going to go back to my sauce here, and I'm going to peel the fish. Guess I'd better put on my glasses too. See, that skin comes very easily off. And then the sauce is going to go over the fish. But you always want to get the skin off anyway. And in this instance, you don't have to take, unless you want to, you don't have to take this dark area off the top of the fish because the sauce is going to cover it. I'm going to check that sauce there. That's doing very nicely. And then reach down by the backbone here to pull out extra bones. And if you have a little pussycat, you'll just have a love all of these fish scraps. And here's the other side. But I think it's the best not to peel the fish until the very last minute because it keeps it moist to have the skin on. And then take the bones out of that. Again, I'm doing a token here. And then put your sauce over. And I'm going to put some parsley in the sauce because that gives it more interest. And then just spoon the sauce, enough sauce over the fish to mask it. I must say that looks awfully good. This could have been very slightly thicker, but I think even so that's perfectly all right. And or you could have beaten in some butter to enrich and thicken it, and then have some parsley sprigs and decorate any place that you've spilled or any place that you don't think it looks very well. Just put parsley around. That's where parsley comes in so handy. What would we do without it, I wonder? You could put the parsley up in the separation of the fish and be sure that you clean off the sides of the dish so there are no sauce dribbles anywhere, because that would be very unprofessional to allow dribbles. And then you're ready to serve. There we are with our saumon braisé au Porto. And I'm going to serve it so you see how it looks. We have steamed rice. I think the thing to do is to put the steamed rice on the plate first, then the fish, and you cut down just down the top side, and then you can cut right down to the bone onto the rice, and then a little extra sauce around the fish. There's a little piece there, and there you are. And then you have a cucumber and something easy like a cucumber and tomato, cucumbers and tomatoes. And for wine, one of your really great white burgundies like a Meursault or a Montrachet, which goes absolutely beautiful with this. For dessert, you can have a fruit tart, and for the first course, you can have something like a pâté. Now, I hope you've counted as I've been cooking all of this, because I only used 2 burners, and I used one oven, or either one of 2 ovens, possibly 45 pan, spoons, and whips. But isn't it better to have a small kitchen and big ideas than a great big kitchen and no ideas at all? So that's all for today on The French Chef. This is Julia Child. Bon appétit.
The French Chef has been made possible by a grant from the Polaroid Corporation. Julia Child is co-author of Mastering the Art of French Cooking, Volumes 1 and 2.